So almost a year in the making. We have a collaboration of minds at Georgia Offroad Adventures. So Alex with WeRideTwo. We also have Chris, Rather Be Welding. We have Rick from Dirt Gear TV. We've got dirt bikes, side-by-sides. We're gonna be out here having a lot of fun. So let's check out the facility, see what they got, and I'll keep you posted. When you first get here, you do have to register before you can really go and park or do anything. This is the registration area. You get towards the back and to the left, it's back by the restaurant. You can fill out the waivers online or you can fill them out in person here. There are bike washing stations. There are a couple side-by-side washing stations too. So you cannot wash side-by-sides on the dirt bike washing stations. So you get tokens from inside, come out here and run the machine, and you get a few minutes to power wash your bike. You cannot wash your bike anywhere else on the property besides these areas. So they do still have a full rental fleet, quads, side-by-sides, dirt bikes of all sizes. Check on their website, contact them for pricing, information about that. Great customer service so far with the rentals we've had in our group today. There is a restaurant on site, there is a bar. They do a special events here where they serve alcohol. The day parking is over by the MX1 and MX2 and PeeWee Tracks, but also close proximity to the trail entrance, the trailhead. In this vicinity of day parking, you will find porta potties. There are just porta potties over here. There is some shade. I would highly recommend, if you're doing day parking, to bring a pop-up tent. We are out at the drag strip. We've got Rather Be Welding against Dirt Gear TV on their homemade buggies. This is MX1. MX1 is a motocross track that's a primarily sand track. It's a bit narrower than the other tracks on the property, kind of a bit one-lined. They don't do racing on this track. There's no gates. It is still a really fun track, but definitely not something for smaller bikes unless they're experienced in sand, because it is pretty slippery out there.
Back and forth.
They do allow primitive camping. There are cabins all over the property that you can rent. When I say cabins, they could either be basically tiny houses built out of sheds, or they could be like these cabins right here, or they could actually just be trailers, like camper vans that have decks built onto them. They're pretty good. The pricing isn't terrible. It's comparable to a motel, but you're right on the property. Some of them have kitchenettes where you can cook, have refrigerators. Some have TVs, but who comes to a motocross track to watch TV? There is a full bathhouse, and they do have showers. There's hot water, cold water. So if you're in primitive camping, or some of the sheds, the campgrounds don't even have bathrooms in them. They're literally just sheds, which means you have to use the bathhouse to go to the bathroom. So this is what's called MX2. This is a large motocross track. This is not meant for beginners. Lots of doubles, step-ups, big turns, hard-packed dirt. It is usually really well groomed, and you'll see in the footage that the track looks great. The jumps are very large, and again, not meant for small bikes, not meant for beginners. I do see sometimes people come out here on small bikes if they're skilled enough to do so. Keep in mind, some of these jumps are 40, 50 feet long. So we found the elusive MX3. However, it is now called Trail 3. And that's because they now allow side-by-sides. They allow side-by-sides on this track. From the group that we have, we've got 2 side-by-sides. They said it was awesome and flowy, which is really cool. However, for a motocross rider, it's still fun. But this is geared absolutely more towards the beginner and intermediate rider. It's flowy, it's lots of good turns, but there are no jumps. Unless you were really, really hauling butt, you're not gonna get off the ground too much. You can do some wheelies, but that's about it. Still enjoy this track. So Chris from Rather Be Welding brought his buggy out here. This is an awesome machine.
This thing is a couch. It is just, I am just laying back and just, this suspension is just absorbing all the bumps. It's so amazing. I love this thing.
Excellent. What did you think of the track itself, built for a side-by-side?
For this track, it was awesome. It was awesome. It was, I didn't really get that much air. I'm getting way more air on this stuff. Not that much air. I don't think I got any air on these. But yeah, this track was amazing. Did
you get a bigger grin on the GP track versus this? Or is this more fun?
GP track is more fun.
Okay.
For me, GP track, because I can go way faster on the GP track on this. This was, it may help, because this was my first lap. It may help if I go around a couple times, get used to it, get used to the corners, what jumps, because there's a lot of blind jumps.
Yeah.
And
you only did 1 lap, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want to do more?
Maybe.
Alright, this is MX3. It's now more of a trail for the track, which is okay, I guess. This is MX4. MX4 is set way back in the woods. You have to take a bunch of trails to get to it. You can ride sport quads and dirt bikes on this, but you cannot do side-by-sides and no off-road quads. It's just for sport vehicles only. There are a good series of jumps. It's a tight track, bunch of 180 switchback turns, and then some doubles. They're like step down, step ups. Most of them are step ups, but they're fairly safe. Right now, the ground is a bit sketchy in my mind. It's really soft, but then compacted on underneath that. So there's like a layer that you can slide on. We got Doug from our group going out right now. So this is what they call the Armadillo track. This is the kids track, a little PeeWee track. My kids really enjoyed this track. There are some bumps, but there's no jumps. Even if you're going super fast, you don't really get off the ground. But it's a fantastic way to learn how to ride. There are turns to the left, turns to the right, just generally safe, good track. It's usually pretty well maintained. It's flat, it's not very rutted. And they do have an age restriction and a CC restriction on this track, so you won't see big bikes out here tearing it up, which is great to see. This is the flat track. The flat track used to be just like a tri-oval. They've added some infield to it with some bumps. They actually have a sign on this that says, "First-time riders only." This is meant for little kids or people who are literally just learning to ride. So this is not a track that you can bring out your side-by-sides and rip up. This is not a track that you can have 250s or 450s on if they're going fast. I haven't seen them actually restrict people off of it. There was just a kid out here on a quad that was tearing it up, but it's meant just for first-time riders. Very flat, very safe, wide open space, lots of runoff if you run off the track itself. Very, very good, safe place to be. There is a Supercross track here. It's not ridden very often as far as I've seen. I've only seen a few bikes on it when I come here. It is a pretty cool track. It's pretty well laid out. It's got some good sized doubles that are peaked just like a Supercross track should be. There are some berm turns so you can get up there. I'm gonna ride it and you'll get to see the footage of it, but I cannot ride a Supercross track. I am terrible on a Supercross track, so keep that in mind as you see this footage. So this is the GP track. This is a track that attracts a lot of side-by-sides, ATVs, but dirt bikes can also go out here too. It is a flowing track. There's not any real big jumps unless you're going super fast. And even then you're not going higher, just traveling a distance. It can get very, very dusty. And when you've got vehicles out there that are pushing a couple hundred horsepower, then they tend to bring clouds behind them. cool. So MX5 is a lot more open, but it's still in the woods, which is kind of cool. The track isn't Supercrossy, it's more motocross-like. There are whoop sections, there are doubles, there's step-ups, step-downs. It's a really cool flowing track. I think this is a fun track for sure. This is a fun place to ride. Definitely worth checking out if you're on a dirt bike. They do not allow side-by-sides on this track either. This is just for dirt bikes. What'd you think?
That was awesome. Great track. Yeah.
That's a cool track. I like that.
Real fun.
Had some good flow to it.
Yeah.
It wasn't as like sharp and technical as MX4 was.
This thing keeps hitting all the way down to the bottom of the suspension.
Were you jumping all the doubles or not? You were? Okay.
I am. And sometimes I'm not knowing how far it's over. I got a rhythm a little bit.
Okay.
It takes a little time.
It does. It definitely does. You gotta get your legs under you.
Yeah.
My legs aren't there.
Yeah. No, I was getting some pretty good air.
Yeah, no, it's a cool track. I like this track. It has good flow. The jumps are pretty simple. You can roll everything, right?
Yeah.
And I think you could do this as a beginner rider and not be too terrified.
Absolutely.
Cool. It's good stuff.
Awesome.
This is the PeeWee Track. This is meant for young children, ages 13 and under, and also restricted to less than 125 cc's. You can have kids quads, you can have 50cc bikes out here, but you cannot have big bikes, and you cannot have side-by-sides regardless of those sides. It's strictly monitored, but this is a really intense PeeWee track. This is an awesome PeeWee track. You've got step ups, step downs, rollers. I don't see any necessary doubles, but I do see some tabletops that have some peaks, which is pretty cool. It's a long track. This would be an awesome track for pit bike racing. I don't know that they do that here, but that would be so cool. They do race out here. They do race kids on this track. This is what's called the turbo track. This track is meant for really high-speed vehicles, side-by-sides. I've even heard that they've had rally cars out here. Dirt bikes can go on it, quads can go on it, but they do say 40 miles per hour is the slowest you can go. So if you are on a smaller bike, if you are a slower rider, do not go on this track. This track is just for high-speed runs.
moment of panic where you're like, oh, this is gonna kill me.
Well, it was like that moment of this is what I know, absolutely, and I appreciate you. So the Pro Track, the Bomber Track as they call it, is a very well manicured track. This is probably one of the best tracks on the East Coast. I would say this rivals most national tracks that I've ridden. I don't believe they host national races here, but they do race here on a very regular basis. Check it out. If you're in the area, this track is a must hit for sure. I drive 16 hours to get to Durhamtown. I don't think it's worth 16 hours for most people, but if you love dirt bikes, if you love riding, this is the place to be for sure. And this track is just beautiful. Very well kept, very well built, very well loved. Even though it is a pro level track, they made it safe in the sense that intermediate riders can come out here too. I wouldn't recommend if it's your first time. This isn't a track for the first time motocrosser, but there are many other places to ride on the property for first time motocrossers. I've had guys out here with me before that have never been on track, and they can still make it around. And you'll see in my ride footage, I'm not going fast. I'm not clearing any of the jumps, and it's still a fun track to ride. I just need to build my confidence up on a track of this scale. The fact that the doubles dip away and it's not a tabletop, it gets in my head. But it is still an amazing fun track. One really cool thing about this track is the complexity of the dirt. We are in Georgia, there is a lot of clay. Most of the track, as you can see right here, is this red-orange clay. But if you look out turns like this, they've brought in soil, they've brought in loam, and they've mixed it in. And then in some of the turns, they've actually brought in mulch to help really keep that moisture in and keep it soft, so it doesn't become this highway of clay. Clay can get blue groove in it. As you saw on some of the other tracks that we rode here, it gets really, really compacted. And they do a great job of tilling this, bringing in different kinds of dirt, and just making it a nice, enjoyable track to ride. Their RV campground over by the Bomber Track does have power and water. There are campsites all over the park, but these are the first to go on race weekends because of the proximity to the track. I'd love to add that riding at Georgia Offroad Adventures will absolutely make you a better rider. Whether it be trails or tracks, they have a little bit of everything in the sense that you could be a bare beginner, never being on a dirt bike before, go find a place to ride and progress through the trail systems, progress through the tracks available, and you will leave here a better rider every single time, guaranteed.